Alright, welcome back. We will now go where we left off. So, to start your new stuff, we're on page 3, question 3. Before you watch this little video, which I will also have in Google Classroom for you, but you can easily just click it right there. I'm first going to describe the three main units of military in Napoleonic warfare and the purpose each served. So we are now on Austerlitz, the genius of Napoleon's way of war. So basically what these next couple questions revolve around is Napoleon was a military mastermind, right? And why or how does this military mastermindedness aid or hurt the French Revolution? Well, we'll talk about that, but first we need to understand how his mastermindfulness manifests itself in like its genius or whatever. So first question you have here is describe the three main units of Napoleonic warfare. Which purpose did each serve? So let me just do this real quick. Military symbols. Okay. So in the Napoleonic times, there were three main unit types. Okay, this doesn't really look that good. Sorry, I am trying to do this on a whim. But you have what my arrow is pointing at right now, aka a square with an X in the middle. That is infantry. So for infantry, you can draw the little square and the little X, and essentially think of it as the pawn of the chessboard. Not in terms of like it's the piece you're willing to throw away willy-nilly, but no, it's the most frequent piece, and it's pretty good at offense and defense, and it's pretty versatile overall. Now, infantry, like what it actually looks like, I'll get you a picture. Infantry, Napoleonic Wars. It is just simply put the men, because I guess only men fought back then, with their muskets who walk in a line in battlefield. They also usually fix something known as the bayonet, which is basically like a really long knife to the end of their musket. These guys are pretty low trained. You don't need to spend a long time training them. They're pretty low logistical necessity. You don't need to like give them a lot of stuff to survive. They're like the most low maintenance, low training type of unit you can have, and this is going to make up the majority of the army. So what purpose did each serve? Fill the ranks of the army, act as good offense and defense overall. Think of them as the pawn, and don't forget to have the little square with the X in the middle. That is the infantry. Okay. Next up you have this symbol, a square with a backslash through the middle. That is the cavalry, le cavalry. Now, what does the cavalry actually look like? I'll show you right here. Cavalry, Napoleonic Wars. I can't spell, sorry. Yeah, here you go. It's the people on horseback. Nice. So think of le cavalry as either the horses, obviously, in chess, or the queen. What I mean by that is, what purpose did you serve? Well, first off, horses are very fast, right? So they're very good at reconnaissance, getting in, looking for details of enemy unit positions or locations, and then coming back to their commander and saying, hey, this is where the bad guys are, so do with that information what you will. That's really one of the main purposes of the horses, the cavalry. And that's what I mean by the cavalry is kind of like the horse in chess, or the knight in chess, my bad. Additionally, though, cavalry is kind of like the queen in chess. Cuirassier, Napoleonic Wars. Because you also have the famed cuirassiers. This is the knights of the Napoleonic era. And what I mean by that, it's like the trump card. These guys had cuirassiers or chest plates. They also had swords that were so sharp that when they were coming at the enemy, they could literally chop an enemy in half. So they were very powerful. They're the creme de la creme, best chess piece Napoleon and his enemies had at their disposal to defeat each other, the cuirassier. However, you could only use these horses about once a fight, because they're usually draft horses, so very big horses, as opposed to the reconnaissance horses, which are more like quarter horses or smaller horses. So they can charge at the enemy once, but then the horse will be blown, aka it'll be like really tired. So you gotta be very strategic when you use these horses, the cuirassiers. So what's cavalry good at? Reconnaissance and like it's also your trump card, but only use it once. And then you finally have l'artillerie, or the artillery. That symbol is pretty simple. It's this one right here. It's just the square with the little dot in the middle. And what is artillery? Artillery, Napoleonic Wars. The artillery is what Napoleon did. Yeah, it's the people with the cannons. So it's not very glamorous and stuff, but I kind of think of the cannons or the artillery as the bishops. They're really good at sniping enemies from far away, dealing damage, but they need to be very well supported by defensive units such as cavalry, or more importantly, infantry, because they're very vulnerable. They can do a lot of damage from far away, but if they're undefended, they're very, very vulnerable. So in summation, infantry, think of it like the pawn in terms of frequency, not disposability. They're decent at offense and defense. Cavalry, think of them as the knights in the chessboard, where they're good at reconnaissance. They can jump over enemy units. They're very quick and evasive. But also think of them as the queen, in that they're a very powerful piece that you don't want to expose too early in the fight. And then you finally have l'artillerie, which is the artillery. Think of them as the bishops. They're very good when there's a lot of distance or space in between them and the enemy, but you don't want them to get exposed. People, horses, cannons. Okay? All right. Next up, you're going to pause this video, watch this, and you're going to answer these questions. Your sub or you can pause it at these moments in the video. Why did infantry fight in close order formation? That's the first question of the video. What's a battalion? That's the second part of the video. And then lastly, it tells you to draw these divisions and tell me what they're good and bad at. So pause the video here, and then we'll come back together. Okay, welcome back. I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot the answers to these questions, but just watch like the first 90 seconds of the video and you'll get it. A battalion is just what makes up a military unit. It's just a military unit size. So 6 companies make up a battalion. I think a battalion's about 600 to 800 dudes, depending. About 6 companies, which is just another size of a military unit, make up a battalion. A company is about 120 men. Below that, a company is made up of platoons. Below that, platoons are made up of sections. Below that, sections are made up of squads. But yeah, battalions are made up of 6 companies, and they're about 600 to 800 dudes, and it's the basic fighting force of the Napoleonic era. Good. And then finally, you have your different formations. The line formation is the basic formation they fought in. What is it really good at? Firepower. What is it really bad at? Defense against cavalry and also maneuver. The column of divisions, that's where you lump all your people close in a very concentrated column. I don't really know how else to say it. What's it really good at? Maneuver. What's it really bad at? Firepower. Okay. Square formation. What's it really good at? Oh, square formation is when you get your guys to like basically point outwards in a square. What's it really good at? Well, it's really good at defending cavalry, like really good at repelling horsey attacks. What's it really bad at? Literally everything else. Okay, so you're only going to get in a square formation when you're defending against horses. Now, finally. So now that you kind of understand like the basics of how Napoleonic warfare worked, like the different little units, and then also why they fought in close order formation, the size of military units, and the types of formations they used, I kind of want it to be a little bit complicated and confusing for you so you can see why Napoleon was like a military mastermind. So Napoleon knew all this stuff, and all of his enemies knew all this stuff. This stuff being the military formations, military unit sizes, and also the why they should fight in close order, and the different unit types. But Napoleon did 3 things, or had 3 advantages, that enabled him to be more successful than his opponents. So first you have l'ordre mixte, which is mixed order. This is a way that Napoleon set up his troops that was different from other nations. Let's see if I can spell it. Order mixed, something like that. Here we go. Nice. This is pretty good. Okay, so the order mixed or mixed order, basically it's where you're going to have 2 or 4 companies in the front, and then you're going to have 2 or 4 companies on the side, so that you basically have, this is a pretty good picture as well, people in the front and people on the side. What is this really good at? Well, not really anything. But what's it really bad at? Well, not really anything. It has a decent amount of firepower. It's pretty compact so you can defend it against cavalry. It's pretty narrow so you still can maneuver quite quickly. Yeah, it's a bit vulnerable to artillery, but that's about it. So the order mixed, or Napoleon's unique way of basically organizing and controlling his forces, his favorite formation, was not great at anything, but not horrible at anything either. So it was a very good, smart formation Napoleon used that gave him an advantage over his enemies. He was very good at exploiting the various weaknesses of all of these other formations with his favorite formation, mixed order, aka putting 2 or 4, usually 2 companies in the front, and then basically your remaining companies on the side to guard the flanks. Pretty smart. Number 2, you have the core system. The core system is the second innovation Napoleon made that kind of helped him win wars. Let's see. This looks kind of bad. Well, okay, this is pretty good. So the core system is essentially, instead of, as everyone else did during the time period, just kind of combining all of your little units that you have, your infantry, cavalry, and artillery, into one massive an army, Napoleon divided up his army into about 7 baby armies. Why does this matter? A baby army is called a corps. This is the core system. So core system equals baby armies. Baby armies are armies that are very small by comparison. They're about the 1/7 of the size of a large army, but they have infantry, they have cavalry, they have artillery. They are capable of fighting independently without other people to help them out. They're capable of fighting independently for very short periods of time. You're like, won't they be kind of vulnerable if they run into a big army? They will, but the genius is you never keep one of your core, one of your baby armies, more than a day's march away from one of your other baby armies, so that you can basically combine your baby armies and maneuver them to defeat the enemy. You're like, why not just keep them in one big army to make sure you don't got to worry about this? Well, if you have baby armies everywhere across the battlefield, your enemy doesn't know where you're truly trying to strike. You're trying to strike in the area where baby army number 3 is, or this area where baby army number 7 is. Additionally, having baby armies across the battlefield make it so you can maneuver much quicker. If you don't have a lot of people, like in any one spot, they can just live off the land in the various spots they're at. Usually with big armies, they're very slowed down by large supply trains. You got to be able to feed them and stuff like that from the rear. But if you just split your army up across a large battlefield, they can just eat the food in the local areas and you don't got to supply them. They'll supply themselves. So logistically, aka like feeding your troops, it's easier. For speed, they'll be way faster because they don't got to spend a bunch of time relying on supply trains. Maneuver, you're like a lot more unpredictable because no one knows where you're truly trying to strike because you're all over the place. That's why the core system was really good. And then finally, how I'll end this video is the fanatical loyalty of Napoleon's soldiers. Napoleon's soldiers were fanatically loyal. What I mean by that is these people were willing to do crazy things for Napoleon due to, yes, his propaganda, but also the idea that they truly believed, many of them, based off of propaganda, but also the truth in some instances, that Napoleon, what he offered them was better than the alternative. They truly felt like, they being the French people, truly felt like, at least many of them, they owned France. Every other monarch in Europe owns their country, but Napoleon made the important distinction, I am the emperor of the French, because the French people own France. So people thought they were fighting and dying for their soil. Their French soil belonged to them. So you combine kind of the craziest soldiers in history with the most advanced military technology of the era, with the most statistically, the most statistically successful general in history, and you have La Grande Armée, or Napoleon's army, the probably, I'd say at least top 3 most dominant armies in the world. And we're going to see a little bit in the next video how he utilizes all these advantages to achieve dominance over Europe. So, in summation, make sure in that video you answered number 3, A and B and C and D and E. Wow, I guess we only did one question in that video. But that's okay. Next video I'll go a little faster. Bye.